Thank you, Eddie. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for a few minutes today. I know the news that you received via memo yesterday was quite shocking, and I'm sorry for the timing of that. But over the past several weeks, Paul and Michael and Dan and I have been in conversations, and we decided that it was time for us to part ways with Paul. We appreciate what Paul has done for us in the short time he's been with us, but timing is bad, and I'll be the first one to admit that. It's always difficult when there's change and uncertainty during the holiday season, and for that I apologize to you. But please know that this wasn't done with a light heart. It was also not done out of anger, fear, or remorse. We had a professional conversation and decided to part ways professionally. And I really can't say anything more than that from a personnel standpoint. What I'd like to focus on today instead is moving forward and talking about the future and what our plans are in that regard. Our number one goal is always and always will be service to you and your satisfaction, plain and simple. We have a great group of department directors here who do excellent work for us day in and day out in a very challenging environment. As we know, inflation continues to cause challenges, staffing continues to cause challenges, but our department directors have stuck with us through it all and are continuing to do great work, and we expect that to be the case. As the memo said that we shared with you yesterday, beginning on January 3rd, we will bring an interim executive director to the community. His name is Jeff Hagan. Jeff comes to us from Oak Hammocks in Gainesville, Florida, which is affiliated with the University of Florida. Jeff retired from Oak Hammocks in June of 2020, and since that time has done interim executive director and interim CEO work. We met Jeff about a year and a half ago when he was actually doing some interim executive director work at Lakewood, not too far from here, our Virginia Baptist Homes Lifespire neighbor. And we were really impressed with Jeff. When Marilyn Gray, our executive director at Windsormead, decided it was time to retire, Jeff stepped in at Windsormead for about 4 months and served as our interim leader there and did exceptional work. Jeff is a bit of a package deal, if you will. He and his wife travel together and do interim executive director and CEO work, and they will be on campus together beginning on January 3rd. So we're looking forward to introducing Jeff to you in the new year. But that leaves about 20 days of what if. And that what if is very important to us because we know how stressful the holidays can be. Many of you know Michael Shaw. Michael was our former executive director here and serves as our vice president for continuing care retirement community operations. But a lot of you don't know Dan Nyman. Dan serves as our chief operating officer, and Dan is to my left, your right. I'd like to invite Dan to come to the stage and introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background, his experience, and his family, and then we'll circle back and talk about what to expect over the next few weeks. Dan?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. As Chris said, I'm Dan Nyman. I get to serve as our Chief Operating Officer here at Pinnacle Living. I have been a licensed nursing home administrator since 1988. I started right out of school and have worked in healthcare or one section of another or senior living all of my entire career. I hail from the great state of Maine. Lived there for about 35, 40 years of my life, and still have family up there. My wife and kids are here, though, in the Richmond area. If you can believe it, my wife is an RN who works in oncology. My daughter is an RN who works in oncology, and my daughter-in-law is an RN who also works in bone marrow transplant oncology. So when I go home at night, I'm surrounded. I don't get a chance. I don't get to talk about administrative stuff at all because they're there. So what we really want to talk about, what I'd like to talk about today is some of the priorities and some of the projects that we have going here moving forward in the next 20 days. It's very, very important to us, as Chris said, this is a tough time of year to do any change. But it's also important that we continue to take a look at our priorities and our projects. one of the most important areas is our healthcare area right now, and in staffing, and making sure that we are delivering the high quality and the high level of services that is the reason that most of you moved here, if you would ever need that at some point in the future. We've been having some problems with our turnover in that area, and Michael and I are going to focus very, very heavily on stabilizing the staffing in that area, so that we're able to deliver the promises that we made to you when you moved here. We're also going to focus heavily on the CARF accreditation, which is our annual accreditation survey that's coming up in the month of February. We're also focusing on the certification. As many of you know, we've been working for a year now to get Medicare certified. And what that really means is that when you go and have a hospitalization, when you come back, you'll be able to do short-term rehab in the nursing home and have Medicare pay for it. And so that'll be a great benefit to the residents who are living here. I think that's all. I guess I missed the most recent part of my career. I spent 13 years, most recently before I joined Pinnacle Living, at the Westminster Canterbury's. I worked 5 years in Lynchburg as Vice President of Health Services, and then for 8 years at Virginia Beach as I ended up as president of the subsidiary companies that we started down there, and had the wherewithal of the benefit of joining Pinnacle Living in 2018, and then when Dan retired, I became the Chief Operating Officer. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Chris, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Dan. Again, many of you know Michael, but I'm going to ask Michael to step forward and reintroduce himself, and then we'll talk about how we're going to move forward. So Michael, if you will, please.
We know. Good afternoon, everyone. Those of you that I've not had the pleasure, my name is Michael Shaw. I spent 5 years from 2017 up until 2021 as the executive director here at Cedarfield. Prior to that, worked for Westminster Communities of Florida out of the St. Pete market, served 2 communities down there as the executive director. And then prior to that, worked for Erickson Living, roaming around the country, helping them with some startup retirement communities in the Philadelphia market, the Houston market, Kansas City, and the Texas market. So in total, have had 27 years of experience operating retirement communities, licensed home administrator, along with Dan, got my first license in Kansas City, and have been licensed as a nursing home administrator for the last 15 years. So Julie and I moved here from St. Pete. Julie, my bride, is a Presbyterian minister and a speech pathologist. She works over at Henrico Parham Hospital. We have 2 little boys, Roger and Tyler, who, can you believe now, are 13 and 14. We adopted them from the state of Florida. They both just got diagnosed with autism here in the last couple of months. And so we're entrenching our family into the Autism Society of Richmond as we speak, so with their programming and their educational opportunities. So I, as Chris had said, I wish these circumstances would be different, but I am really delighted to be back at Cedarfield for a couple of weeks in tandem with Dan Nyman to lead the community in an interim basis. And my door is open as it was in the last 5 years. If anyone wishes to talk about anything in the office and or over lunch upstairs, I'd be more than happy to meet with you. So, Chris?
Thank you, Michael. So again, we know that the holiday season is a very difficult time for transition. And again, we apologize for that. But as we work through the next few weeks, Dan and Michael will both be on campus and will both be accessible and will both be supporting our teams. We all have different personalities, we all have different strengths, and we all have different gifts and graces. And hopefully you can find comfort in knowing that Michael and Dan will both be here supporting our leadership team. I see a number of our team leaders standing in the back of the room. This is an important transition for them as well. Transition is never easy. It's always challenging. But I know that our department directors here are up for that challenge, and we're up for the challenge as well. As we move into the new year, as I shared, Jeff will be joining us, and he'll be spending some time with us as we begin a national search for a new executive director here at Cedarfield. We're fortunate that the employment market for executive directors is more positive than it has been in past months, and we feel as though we'll be able to attract and retain a good quality executive director that will be able to serve us long term. Again, this is not what we expected, it's not what we bargained for, but it's the cards that have been dealt to us, and we're going to move forward. We're going to move forward positively. So with that, I'd love to open up the floor to any questions or comments related to the future and how we're going to adapt. Michael, the first hand went up right behind you, if you will, please.
It seems that lately we have been losing some what we think are important people here. And I just want to know, why is this happening? And the other comment I have is, I'm glad to know you're going to focus on healthcare. My husband is in healthcare right now, and there is room for a lot of improvement. And I will be speaking on that tomorrow at the Residents' Council meeting.
So if I may address your second question, your second point first, I agree with you. There's always room for improvement in healthcare, and we know that we have a major staffing challenge here at Cedarfield. Today, we have more than 40 vacant positions in full-time and part-time employment at our community. I don't know if that's a number that's ever been shared with you before, but it's almost equally split between full-time and part-time vacancies, and that creates challenges. There's no doubt about that. What we're proud of at Pinnacle Living is that at Hermitage Richmond, at Hermitage Roanoke, and at Windsor Mead, I'm going to knock on wood as I say this, solved our staffing challenges. We don't have the vacancies in our other communities that we have here at Cedarfield.
Why is that?
I'd like to know that as well, and that's one of the things that we're going to dig into deeply over the next several months. The pay and benefits are the same, the policies and practices are the same. We've got excellent directors in every position, but we do have vacancies here that we need to address. You were going to say something? I didn't want to interrupt. Okay, I apologize. We can always come back to you. In terms of the people that have left, that's something that we've got to dig into as well. I've heard from a few folks that a few good people very recently left the community, and I don't know the reason for that. So that's something that we're going to have to dig into and determine. But again, personnel matters are sensitive. Personnel matters are challenging. We make it a practice to not discuss those personnel issues, but you have my word, Dan's word, and Michael's word that we're going to look into this and really dig deeply into the why. Another follow-up question there? Michael?
I just want to say how much I love living here at Cedarfield, and it really hurts me that our health care is not up to the standards that I think we all signed up for. And I hate that that can be out in the community.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll stay on this side for a moment. Michael, a hand went up here very early as well.
I'm Dr. Lois Dow, and I moved here about 14 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I am appalled that Cedarfield is not Medicare certified. I'd like you to address the background of that.
I'd be glad to.
I have to say I am a retired hematologist-oncologist. 14 years I practiced at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And St. Jude early on recognized that they needed to collect the insurance that people had as a benefit for their financial status. St. Jude is well known for providing all sorts of extras for patients in terms of transportation, et cetera, but not to be Medicare certified. Can you tell us the background and where we're headed and what the timetable is?
Yes, I'll do my best to answer all 3 points, if you will. Background, just for those who don't know, I did serve as the executive director here from 1996 until 2005, so right after we opened. And that was a burning question early on. Why are we not Medicare certified? In 1996, none of our Pinnacle Living communities were participated in the Medicare or Medicaid program. We had deep conversations with our board, And I have no excuse other than to say that in the 90s and early 2000s, our board chose not to be Medicare certified. I have an opinion as to why that's the case, but it's only an opinion, so I'm not going to share that opinion here. Fast forward to the development of Windsor Mead in 2005 after I became CEO, and we pushed hard and we convinced our board that Medicare certification was the way to go. Today at Windsor Mead, we have 21 certified nursing home beds. 22 certified nursing home beds. Much smaller community, much smaller operation, also a much smaller nursing component, but all of our beds there are certified. We've been certified since 2008 there. As we look to the future, as part of our conversations here, for those that were part of the conversation for the expansion and renovation work that we've done with wellness, independent living, dining, and healthcare, Medicare certification boiled to the top in 2017 as we worked through that. We made the decision that the area that is being certified, the 20 beds right outside of the dining room on the 4th floor, I apologize for pointing over my shoulder, but right out here on the 4th floor outside of the dining room would be the best space for that. We completed that renovation, can someone help me?
2 months ago.
2 months ago. And we've been working through as Michael said, for the last year, we've been working through that certification process with CMS and the Department of Health. So our intent has been from day one to certify those 20 beds. In terms of timing, wish we had that crystal ball. So what needs to happen is we've submitted our applications for Medicare certification for those 20 beds. We're in the queue for our survey, and once that survey takes place, we expect to receive that Medicare certification. Admittedly, it has not been a priority for Pinnacle Living over the past many years. We're 75 years young this next coming year, and Medicare certification was never a consideration. We're excited about this opportunity because we know it'll benefit residents. It'll benefit residents not only financially but also physically with that short-term rehab component. One of the things we heard yesterday, if I may just go a little farther, one of the things we heard yesterday when we spoke to the Residents Association leadership was that there's concern that we're going to fill those nursing home beds, the Medicare certified beds, with, I'm going to put it in quotes, outsiders, non-life care residents. And let's be really clear there. That's a bed management issue. The average length of stay for a Medicare certified stay in the Commonwealth of Virginia is below 20 days. So there are always going to be people moving in and out of that Medicare certified space. So as we manage the beds, we've done great work with managing that at Windsor Mead. We've never had to defer a life care resident at Windsor Mead from accessing a nursing home bed. And we've had an average daily census, Dan, of about 6.5 in Medicare. About 6.5 is our average daily census in Medicare. So we've got good experience in managing the beds. We've got good experience with a 5-star certification at Windsor Mead, which only 3% of the nursing homes in the country have a 5-star nursing certification. We expect to emulate that here at Cedar Field, and we're excited about that. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
May I follow up with a question?
Certainly.
Related to that?
Many of us are greatly concerned as to how you make your projections. We are an older population.
Great question.
1/3 of the people over 80 are going to have dementia, I think is the statistic. And I wondered how you make your projections, both for Medicare number of beds and for beds or space for people with dementia. I have a spouse with dementia, and many of us in this room are very concerned about this as a problem. If you could present to us how you make those analyses and projections, we would be interested.
Certainly will, Doctor. First things first, I don't do that work because I'm not smart enough to do that work, okay? So we engage A.V. Powell and Associates, that's P-O-W-E-L-L. Oop.
Can you get closer to the mic?
I can, Doc. Thank you for pointing that out. Is that better? Okay, thank you. We engage A.V. Powell and Associates of Atlanta, Georgia. A.V. Powell and Associates is a senior living actuary. I think we have a professional actuary in the room. Or I know we have a professional actuary in residence. Is there? I don't know who that is, though. Okay. So there are lots of accounting and actuary jokes that we could tell at this point, but we won't. But that actuary does exceptional work for us. They look at independent living residences and they focus solely on life plan communities and senior living communities. So what they help us do is, number one, build, construct, and operate the right number of residences for our population. So the right number of assisted living, the right number of memory support, the right number of nursing care. And then on an annual basis, that actuary study actually looks at real life experiences here at Cedarfield, not at other communities, and it projects the length of stay in independent living, assisted living, memory support, and healthcare. And then we do, admittedly, backfill vacancies with per diem or lease residents, if you will, when the opportunity arises. So that actuarial projection is something that we do on an annual basis, and it's a very important part of what we do. The reason we chose 20 certified nursing beds was because of that actuarial projection, that actuarial analysis. We believe that probably at any given time, we may have 8 or 10 Cedarfield life care residences who will take advantage of that Medicare certification when the word the actuaries use is when the 20 beds mature. So when we are up and operational and everything is moving as it should, we believe that we'll have 8 to 10 roughly life care residents taking advantage of those Medicare certified beds on any given day. So that leaves at least 12 additional beds for unexpected occurrences, for outside Medicare revenue to come into the community to offset expenses, and for us to better serve the greater community. That help, Doc?
That helps. Not all of us are life care people. How many?
And I'm sorry, I said life care, but also those who have the Pinnacle Advantage contracts, that is included in that as well. The fee-for-service contract, that's all factored in. Thank you for that clarification.
Welcome back to
Thanks.
Cedarfield, Chris.
Thank
I hope you will join us at our holiday party.
I will be here.
Thursday. Wonderful. Those of us who have lived here a long time feel we know the personnel. However, there is constant ongoing population change. We would appreciate if you would bring forward the leadership team and introduce each of those persons.
Be glad to do that. Can we do that towards the end, Ms. Spinsky? Is that okay? Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a couple of comments, and number one is...
Microphone closer to your mouth.
Can you hear?
That's better.
Is that better? Okay. I'm Joy Nevin. My husband is in memory care, and I can honestly tell you that he gets beautiful care. I have no experience to share about health care. However, I am concerned, as I'm sure so many other people in this room are, about the sudden exit of Paul Gregg and sudden exit of other people who have left us, who were very qualified staff members. My question to you, Chris, is do you do exit interviews with people?
Good question. Yes, ma'am, we do. Many of you have already participated in, I'm sorry. Sorry, Doc, thank you. He was about to yell at me. I saw him put his hands over his mouth. Many of you have already participated in the We Care Connect Resident Engagement Survey.
Yes.
We Care Connect is a tool that we've used for about 3 years for our team members as well. So We Care Connect started in the senior living field of engaging and surveying team members in senior living communities. They grew into doing both onboarding or new employee surveys and exit surveys for all team members. So we take advantage of We Care Connect. The benefit there is, quite candidly, it's an impartial third party that gives us direct feedback. It is not, and I'll stress this because I think this is important to some of our residents, it is not an anonymous survey. So when a team member, and we do, help me Dan, 30, 90, and 120 day onboarding surveys.
Actually 7, 45, and then 90.
Okay, I'm sorry. Onboarding surveys, we do 7 days, 45 days, and 90 days. And we get a lot of great information from our new team members in that regard. Then on the backside, We Care Connect contacts every team member, be it a a voluntary resignation or a termination and goes through the survey process with them as well. And we get a lot of great information there. Question as to why that's not anonymous, because quite often there's benefit in following up individually to, number one, get more detail, and number two, really try to resolve any challenges that may come up early on. So I know that some of the residents who have participated in the We Care Connect resident survey are concerned about anonymity. That's a trust issue. And as we work together to better our communities, be it Cedarfield or Hermitage Richmond, Hermitage Roanoke, or Windsor Mead, we need to trust one another with the information we share. So to your point, yes ma'am, we do. We take that to heart and we look at it with every single onboarding and offboarding within the organization.
One more thing. John and I have been here. John and I have been here for 5 years, and we're thrilled we picked Cedarfield. However, one of my big things in life is to communicate, and I would say that it is our concern that too many things happen, too many changes are made, and we as residents are not included in the conversation. And the very last point, and then I promise I'll zip it up, is that my concern is that several years ago when we came here, we were told that if we went for the full plan, that all expenses would be paid. There was no mention at that time that if you came on the preferred plan, that you would be charged. And I now look at memory care, and there are many more people who have come from the outside who are not Cedarfield residents. And then I hear stories of wonderful Cedarfield people who have super big needs with their husbands or their wives, and they can't get in. And that bothers me, and I want to know what you're going to do about that.
So balancing, if I may, balancing life care, Pinnacle Advantage priorities with outside resource opportunities, and I need to stress that, is a tough job. And it's a job that we again rely on our actuaries for. Financially, everyone in this room and Pinnacle Living can't afford for those beds to sit vacant. There's a revenue opportunity there. So we work hard with our actuary to balance that revenue piece and balance that census piece. It's not foolproof. It's not perfect. But I have to stress also, you all see your neighbors who are struggling. Many times you don't know the conversations that our social services team and our wellness team are already having with those folks. It does take time, oftentimes, to convince people that it's time to make a transition. So just because a transition isn't happening, it doesn't mean that it's not in process. So we're going to dig in and really look at the concerns that you've raised with residents who need those services, who aren't being served, and dig in over the next several weeks to determine how we can best serve those and develop plans and systems accordingly. Thank you.
Chris, I know that there's been a lot of discussion here with regard to having a non-voting person on the board, particularly now as you survey the outside community for a new CEO here. Wouldn't it be advisable to have included the leadership council in that, at least to know what the criteria is that you're going to be using, and then when you're down to the final candidates, so that there is an input from the leadership council that can then be relayed to the residents.
Very good point. Yes, sir. So if I may, I think there were about 12 different questions there, but very succinctly stated. Number one, resident engagement with the board of directors. Mike Greenwood and I have been talking, Mike Greenwood, resident engagement with the board of directors. Mike and I have been talking He's been very transparent with me, and I appreciate that. I know that the council is meeting tomorrow, and one of your items for discussion with the council is just that, the request for resident representation on the board of directors. So that will be taken up with our board at our January board meeting, and I'll be happy to report back to you on that one. Short term, if I may. Did I see a hand go up in the back? No, okay. Short term, if I may, we have in the past for key positions engaged residents in those conversations. So your point is very valid. When Paul joined us, there was a group of residents that we brought together to help us with that. What we can do, though, and Dan, if you'll make note of this, is as we develop the criteria for the successful successor, if we can share that information with the community, to your point, I think that would be very helpful. So, but we will commit to engaging residents in that conversation. Thank you.
I didn't introduce myself. I'm Denise Bakula, and I've lived here about a little over a year and a half. My husband needs memory care.
Okay.
There is no room at Cedarfield for my husband.
Okay.
He is moving out of Cedarfield.
I'm sorry that's the case.
So am I, and it's not what I signed up for here.
Okay.
And I know that there are a number of people from the outside community taking those rooms. It would seem to me that since they're on a month-to-month basis there, that if you have a Cedarfield resident who needs that room, they are given 30 days, 60 days, some kind of notice to say, you need to find another space because we have a Cedarfield resident who has paid a lot of money to live here and needs that space. And I'm sad to say, and I'm really sorry that my husband, and I'm sorry, has to leave Cedarfield.
Ms. Piccola, can I ask Dan Nyman and Laura to follow up with you immediately following this meeting? Can we have a few minutes of your time? Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll take it back and then come to the front. You're good.
Chris, I'm Bill Smith, and I've been at Cedarfield going on 9 years now. My wife has been in independent living, memory care, health care, and she's now in healthcare dementia in her final stages of Alzheimer's, requiring a lot of help. She can't do anything on her own. She's very dependent on the care. All in all, things go well, except on weekends and holidays. Very little supervision, very little staff available in those times. And I think it's important that you recognize what some of us are going through. And I know the help can be hired, there can be arrangements, or some of the staff here ought to be on duty. And Chris, I just make an opinion. You made a statement just a few minutes ago that you couldn't afford to have an empty bed here. That shook me up. With what we paid to come here, we were told there would always be rooms. Now this lady right here, her husband is having to move out. Some of this outside help that came in should be the ones that move out. But we were told and have been told through the years that we would keep 2 beds available. That is not happening.
I understand.
There is no beds available in Morning Glory. There's no rooms of beds available where my wife is. I think the sales staff has been overconscious. And I know money is important, but Cedarfield is very profitable to Pinnacle Living. And I really think, and people are scared about this Medicare wing, I hope that none of the residents here ever have to wait for a room there. I know money is important, and Chris, I know that's important with all the construction and overrides that we hear. I know you have to be concerned with money. Please don't take what I'm going to say next personal. When I first came to Cedarfield, Chris, you were here all the time when we were building. I personally feel from the management here down, it's hard to get, that's very vacant. from management here to your level is a lot of levels of management. I'm going to challenge you to find more time to involve yourself more at Cedarfield. I think there are things you may not be aware of. I will say to this group here, while I'm concerned, Cedarfield is still the best place in Richmond. I believe that. But we came here because it was the best place. And I personally think we're slipping a little. And I think it can be fixed. And Chris, I challenge you to, maybe the time is right for you to be more involved in here. And some of these things can be solved. It's just a tragedy. Anyway, I know COVID, I know the construction, I know all this came at a bad time. If I had to make the decision today, I would still come to Cedarfield. But I have high expectations of what we need here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hope I said every bed full. Or I hope I didn't say every bed full. I said we need to fill the majority of the beds. If I misspoke, I apologize. Okay, that is not what I meant to say, and I apologize for that. So thank you for challenging me on that one. And I hear what you're saying, Mr. Smith, and thank you.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
My concern right now is, what do we do about damage control? Once this gets out in town, we're in trouble. And I hope there's a plan in place to deal with it, and with us, because it's difficult for us as well.
And I appreciate Dr. Seghetti. I appreciate that, Dr. Seghetti. I moved the microphone down a little bit. Can you all hear me a little better now?
Thanks.
Damage control is important. And as we look at this and we look to the future, we know the loss of a key leader is challenging. Unfortunately, it does happen. And it happens with a lot more frequency in the marketplace than we realize. That's not an excuse. It's just a fact of life. But we've committed to a seamless transition for you and for every prospect coming here. Dan and Michael will be here. I think a lot of you have met Laura Jones. Laura is our Vice President for Sales and Marketing in the back of the room. She's been spending a lot of time here, and I'll be here as well as we work through this. Feel very fortunate that we're bringing Jeff on board, and we're going to fill this position as quickly as we can, but it will take some time. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you. I'm Jane Smith. I've been here at Cedarfield for 8 years. I had an unfortunate event in my life last week, and that is I was in an automobile accident that destroyed my car, and would have destroyed me had I had a lesser strong car.
I'm sorry.
But in any event, when I came from that back to Cedarfield, not realizing I really needed the emergency room, I called the clinic and left a message, which was not returned that day. And I continued making an effort to get some service from the clinic. When I finally did, I did not get to see the doctor. I saw the nurse practitioner, who told me that the clinic was here for the benefit of the people in healthcare and not for independent living. That was the first I had heard that. And my concern is communications. If there have been policy changes and areas are not made available for us that we've used in the past, at least we could be let know.
I'm sorry you had that experience, Ms. Smith, and I'm sorry about the car accident. We're going to need to follow up on that comment. If Michael or Dan could check back with you as soon as this meeting's over and find out who in the clinic shared that with you, I'd appreciate knowing that.
What day of the week was it?
Question was what day of the week. We can dig into that.
Monday.
It was a Monday. Okay. Tuesday. Okay. We'll follow up with that, Ms. Smith, because that is not the case. That we have a dedicated health services staff for our healthcare assisted living memory support residents. I don't know how that could be misconstrued. I apologize, but that is not the case. Okay. Michael, question in the back? There are two here in the front, Michael.
Alice has still a question.
Yep.
I would just like to put Amy Chapman's name down on your list of prospects for coming back to Cedarville.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Stone. Michael, there was a question here. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Cheryl and Hewell. My husband and I have been here for 2 years, and I taught nursing in this town for 30 years, and I know way too much about all the nursing homes in town. So when I had to have care after an 18-day hospitalization, shortly after I moved in, I chose to come here, and I'm a preferred choice, and I knew I was going to be paying $410 a day out of pocket because I was not going to a Medicare facility, and I didn't care at that point because, like I said, I know too much about most of the nursing homes in town, and I have been a consultant for Little Sisters of the Poor years ago for their nursing home. They know how to make money. They make a lot of money.
But they do it. They do it exceptionally well.
Yes, but nursing homes are very hard to keep staffed, no matter where you are. And I will say that the people who cared for me here, I just looked at them down at VCU and I said, "We have a social worker at Cedarfield. Please call her. She will handle everything." And she did. And she said, "Your bed's ready. When you leave the hospital, you come straight here." I had to go to the emergency room while I was in healthcare. I said, "I'm having chest pain." They said, "You're going to the emergency room." I went to the emergency room. I have a condition that required care that most nurses don't know a lot about. And I said, "We'll manage to get through it." And they did, and they all learned how to do it. So I was very pleased with the care I got. It's never going to be perfect anywhere you go, but I'm very, very picky about who touches me and what they do, and I was highly pleased with the care I received here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The hardest job in the world, the hardest jobs at Cedarfield are the certified nursing assistant and the housekeeper. And no one can ever tell me differently. Those people are called to serve in those roles because they could go elsewhere and make more money. Unfortunately, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that's exactly what's happened for about 236,000 direct caregivers in senior living since the beginning of the pandemic. 15% of our workforce has chosen to exit health. 15% of our work, 15% of our work, those who know me know that I can't stand still, so normally I'm pacing back and forth. So I apologize for not talking into the microphone. 15% of the senior living workforce has exited senior living since the beginning of the pandemic. So staffing is a challenge, but we can do better. And I appreciate your comments. I saw a question over here, Michael.
Liv Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
I've lived here for 17 years. Liv Jackson. I've lived here for 17 years. What a transition. We are all concerned. We are all very concerned about the immediate leaving of people. It suggests poor management.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, ma'am.
Well, we would like to have more assurance so we can settle this. It's just not comfortable for us.
I understand.
To witness this.
I understand.
And we need better management.
I understand, and we're going to work to work together to do that. You have my word for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to ask the department directors to begin to filter to the front of the room, those that are in the room, to do introductions, the leadership team. Michael, I think I saw a hand up here on the right, but I don't. Oh, Doctor. Purple.
One of the things I was told when we were looking at Cedar Field is that it was dementia friendly. And we've already addressed a lot of the inpatient problems. But many of us in independent living who have spouses that we're taking care of really don't. We have a wonderful support team in terms of social work. And they've given us ways to use outside agencies for support. But Cedar Field itself, with Cedar Field personnel, there's not a way for us to get respite care, for example. We have to schedule something into our schedule with an outside caregiver. So I think Cedar Field has to reconsider what it is in terms of dementia friendly.
Okay.
It's also true in terms of activities. Another cause I'll take up is that some of us have had conversations about being ADA compatible. And I think Cedar Field has to take a hard look as to what is ADA compatible here and what is not.
If you've got specifics in that regard, I would love to talk with you a little bit about that, but your point of dementia-friendly is heard, and I thank you for that. Before we turn to the department directors that are in the room, are there any final questions or comments?
One more question.
Yep. Dr. Ting?
I'm Nina Ting. I'm in here on the 13th year. And I just have the observation, especially about Paul Gray. I think, and for the future, being fair to the incoming executive director here, you might want to take a page from the Book of Order of Presbyterians. The preceding predecessor minister will not come back to the old church for at least 1 year, because it can be very intimidating to the new minister. And I think it could be the same thing here to the new executive director.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you, Doctor. I think we have a second microphone someplace up here. Adrian, you're going to start it. Early on in the Q&A, Adrian, Ms. Fiske, I'm sorry, I knew somebody earlier, Ms. Fiske asked that the leadership team introduce themselves. So if you could take the microphone and introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do here, your experience, and then pass the microphone to the next person down the line, I'd appreciate it. Okay?
Okay. I'm Adrian Oliver. I'm the Associate Executive Director. I oversee the Health Services Departments of Assisted Living and Health Services. Did you hear my name, or should I start over? Start over. Okay. I'm Adrian Oliver. I'm the Associate Executive Director. I oversee health services to include assisted living. And they wanted...
And stand right behind the podium.
I'm getting direction. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got off the camera. We're live.
Sorry.
Okay. Try that again. Take 3.
Third time's a charm. I'm Adrian Oliver, and I'm the Associate Executive Director. I oversee health services, which includes the 4th floor and 5th floor, Lavender Lane, Poppy Place, Magnolia Meadow, and assisted living, which is Garden Grove, and memory support, which is Morning Glory.
How long have you been an administrator and RN?
Doesn't tell them how old I am.
I promise you don't do that.
That's all right. They will do the math. I've been in healthcare 32 years. I started when I was 2. And that's the story I'm sticking with. You're welcome.
My name is David Taylor. I'm the business office manager. Better? Yes. My name is David Taylor. I'm the business office manager. We handle billing. You guys all know us for that. We also pay all the outgoing bills. We handle any of the paperwork necessary for your contracts or anything like that kind of after you've already signed on. I've been here since April. CPA, have a degree in finance, I have a degree in accounting. I went to VCU. And I've previously worked, this is my first job in senior living. I've previously worked for some of the larger companies in Richmond. I worked for the Federal Reserve, Capital One, Circuit City, back when it had 500 stores and 50,000 employees. Remember that? I've also worked for Owens & Minor and some other smaller companies. I enjoy working for a smaller company where I get to do more of the accounting and the interaction with the customers, and in this case, the residents.
Thank you. Sharon?
Good evening. Ooh, I don't like talking in front of a group, but I'm sure you all know me. My name is Sharon Brown, Director of Housekeeping. I've been here going on 24 years, and I'm sure I talk to each and every one every day. I finished school in 1983, went to college, came here as a housekeeper. As I got into housekeeping, I came into being a leader. As a leader, then I went to being a supervisor, then I went to took some more classes in college, and I came and I got into management. And after management, I came as your Director of Housekeeping. So I'm here to share with you all. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me. My name is Allison Zach. I'm the Director of Philanthropy here at Cedarfield. I've been here for almost 3 years. In January, it'll be 3 years. I have about 13 years of senior living experience. Before coming to Cedarfield, I worked for a life plan community outside of Chicago. I work with all of you and your families to raise resources for Cedarfield and its various charitable funds. And we are always grateful for all the gifts and of generosity and of all your talents that you all share with us every day. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Lacey Salamone. I'm the Director of Maintenance and Engineering. Hopefully I'll try to talk to a lot of you out here. I come from the city of Richmond. I've been the director for just over 8 months now, so I'm still getting my feet under me. I think our team has made a good turn for the better. Hopefully everybody agrees. Just kind of let everybody know my door's always open. We always have room for improvement, and I still think we have a ways to go, but we're here.
Not with us on the leadership team, and we do have about 2 minutes, and then we're going to break and clear the room. But Tamika Ross is our Director of Nursing. Tamika is not feeling well today, so she's not here. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers. I think everybody knows David Stewart. Florence Brooks is hiding somewhere. She had to leave because of a family issue. Where's Eleanor? I know she's in the room and she's hiding someplace. Sitting in the back of the room is the person that runs everything, Eleanor. Next time we'll make her come up front and introduce herself. We missing anybody? I think that's the team. So,
yeah, Stephanie.
Oh, and Stephanie Bercume, our HR director. Thank you. Stephanie is obviously, she's in orientation today with new team members, so she is tied up doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your time today. We do have a couple of minutes. Our team is coming in for a quick 2:30 meeting, so I think Dan and Michael and I are going to step out in the hall, and if anybody would like to talk with us, we would invite you to step out into the hall with us and chat for a few minutes. But thank you for your time. Look forward to being back in front of you soon. Reverend Eastman. Come well, sir.